Kale Rin had walked the corridors of countless space stations, but Zera 9 was different. The hub floated on the edge of the Violia Rift, a region of space known for its unstable magnetic fields and wandering asteroid clusters. Humans rarely ventured this far. Most considered it dangerous and unwelcoming, a place better left to alien merchants, smugglers, and mercenaries. Yet Kale had a mission, and he moved with the confidence of someone who had faced far worse than unpredictable gravity waves and overzealous customs officers. The corridors of Zera 9 were alive with activity. Aliens of every shape and color hustled past, some glowing faintly in the dim neon light, others with wings or tentacles that brushed the walls as they passed. Holographic signs flickered above doorways, advertising everything from anti-gravity fashion to the rarest space spices. The air smelled faintly of metal and ozone, mixed with a hint of fried protein from the food stalls that lined one side of the station. Kale kept his eyes forward, his boots clanging softly against the metal flooring, though every instinct told him to be alert. Humans were a rarity here, and Kale felt their gaze on him. Not all of it was hostile, but most of it was curious. The humans in Zera 9 had always been outsiders, small in numbers but stubborn and daring. They survived by being clever, fast, and occasionally reckless. Kale, with his reputation as a starship commander, did not mind the attention. But today something felt different, a tension in the air that he couldn't immediately place. And then he saw her. She appeared from around a corner, stepping lightly, yet as she moved, she seemed to command the attention of the entire corridor. Kale noticed first the way her head held itself, regal and unbending, as if she carried a crown he could not see. Her hair was dark, cascading past her shoulders in soft waves, and her eyes, Kale could hardly believe it, were the kind that seemed to pierce through the crowd, straight to him. Every movement was deliberate, measured, yet effortless. She walked as though the world existed for her to pass through, not for her to pass with. Kale slowed, almost unconsciously, his mind trying to process what he saw. He had been to the far reaches of the galaxy, faced alien warriors and hostile terrain, but nothing prepared him for this. She was striking in a way that was almost unreal, a combination of beauty, poise, and undeniable power. Every head turned. Conversations stuttered. A group of alien traders froze mid-step, staring. Even the station guards seemed to falter in their patrol, drawn by her presence. Kale felt a pull he could not explain. Humans were taught to rely on logic and observation, to measure and calculate, but this was instinct. He knew deep in his gut that she was extraordinary. She approached him slowly, as if she had been expecting him. Kale's hand hovered near his sidearm out of habit, but he did not reach for it. Something in her gaze commanded restraint, demanded attention rather than threat. "Do you know me?" Her voice was soft, yet clear, carrying through the ambient noise of the station like a gentle melody that refused to be ignored. Kale blinked, caught off guard. He studied her face, searching for recognition, for a memory, for a hint of familiarity, but nothing came. I don't think so," he said cautiously. A faint smile touched her lips, not mocking but knowing. She tilted her head slightly, her eyes never leaving his. "Are you sure?" Before Kale could answer, she moved past him, weaving through the crowd with the same fluid grace. It was as if she existed in a space slightly apart from reality, a presence that drew the air toward her. Kale watched her go, a sense of awe and frustration warring inside him. She had asked a question he could not answer, and yet he felt a connection he could not explain. For the rest of the day, Kale could not focus on his mission. Every corner of Zera 9 seemed to hold her shadow, every corridor whispered her name. He asked discreet questions among the few humans and alien merchants he trusted, careful not to draw attention, and what he discovered left him even more unsettled. Her name, spoken in hushed tones, was Lysera, Queen Lysera of the Orcsian Empire. Few had ever glimpsed her in person, and fewer still lived to describe it. The Orcsian Empire spanned dozens of star systems, their fleets unmatched, their political reach unchallenged. Lysera was said to be both brilliant and ruthless, a strategist and warrior who could outthink entire councils of rulers. And yet here she was, moving incognito among the human sectors, blending in just enough to avoid immediate detection, while still radiating a presence that could not be ignored. Kale's mind raced. What was she doing here? Humans were small players in the galaxy's political landscape, often overlooked and underestimated. And yet fate had thrown him into her path, Was it coincidence, or something more deliberate? He remembered the words she had spoken. "Do you know me?" They echoed in his mind, a question layered with meaning. Did she already know him? Did she know what he was capable of, or was she testing him in some way he could not yet comprehend? Cale had faced aliens who could read emotions or manipulate thoughts, but nothing had prepared him for this. A human standing before a queen whose power seemed almost legendary. As evening fell over Zera 9, the station's artificial lights deepening the shadows, Cale found himself walking through the lower decks, a place he knew well from previous missions. It was quieter here, less crowded, and he thought he might find a trace of her, some hint of where she had gone. The hum of machinery and distant voices filled the corridors, but his senses were alert, every nerve on edge. And then he saw her again. Lysera stood near the docking bays, her silhouette framed by the giant observation windows that overlooked the star-strewn void. The colors of distant nebulae reflected across her features, casting her in an otherworldly glow. Cale noticed the subtle confidence in her stance, the way she seemed to measure the stars themselves as if they were chess pieces in a game he could barely understand. "Why do you follow me?" she asked without turning. Her voice was calm, almost amused, carrying a tone that suggested she already knew the answer. Cale stopped a few paces behind her. "I'm not following you," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. I want to understand why you are here." Lysera turned slowly, her eyes locking onto his. In them, Cale saw something that both frightened and fascinated him: intelligence, curiosity, and a quiet power that could bend the will of anyone who underestimated her. She smiled faintly. "Few humans ever come this close. Most are too small, too cautious, too predictable." Cale bristled at the remark, though not in offense. There was truth in it. Humans were underestimated because they were unpredictable, capable of ingenuity in the most desperate situations. Perhaps that unpredictability had drawn her attention. "I'm not predictable," he said firmly. "Humans, we adapt, we survive, we find ways where others see none." Lysera's smile widened almost imperceptibly. "Perhaps that is why I noticed you," she said. Her gaze softened slightly, though her aura of command remained. "Not many have the courage to meet me, to look me in the eye without fear. That courage, it is rare." Cale felt a strange mixture of pride and unease. He was not sure if he had passed some unseen test or simply stumbled into it. Yet, standing there in the presence of someone who could influence the fate of entire star systems, he felt alive in a way he rarely did. Humans often believed they were small, insignificant in the vast expanse of the galaxy. But here, in this moment, Cale realized that size and numbers were not everything. Sometimes courage, intuition, and will mattered just as much. Lysera studied him for a long moment, then stepped closer, her movement silent despite the clanging metal floor. She extended a hand, a gesture both simple and commanding. "You are brave, human. Tell me, Cale Rin, what drives you? What makes you stand when most would flee?" Cale considered the question carefully. He could have answered with protocol, with honor, with duty, but the truth came first, raw and unfiltered. "I stand because I must, because running solves nothing, because even if I fail, I will have tried." And perhaps because humans refuse to be forgotten. For the first time, Lysera seemed to truly regard him, not as a curiosity, not as an anomaly, but as someone worthy of attention. She nodded slightly. "Then perhaps we are not so different. I too stand because I must. I lead because there is no other choice, and yet very few can meet me without faltering. You do not falter." The words settled over him, heavy with meaning. Cale realized that meeting her was more than chance. It was the first step into a world of politics, strategy, and power he had never imagined navigating. Yet in that realization, he also felt something exhilarating. Humans, small as they were, had a role to play in this galaxy. And perhaps, in time, the world would remember what humans could do when they dared to act. As the artificial night of Zera 9 deepened, Lysera turned and walked away, her presence leaving an invisible echo that lingered in the air. Cale watched her go, heart pounding, mind racing, fully aware that this encounter would change everything. He had glimpsed something extraordinary, a queen who commanded more than armies or fleets, a presence that could challenge the very way the galaxy thought of humans. Cale did not know what came next, but he knew one thing with certainty. He would follow, not because he was ordered, but because curiosity, courage, and perhaps fate itself demanded it. Humanity had always survived against odds that seemed insurmountable. And now, standing on the edge of the unknown, Kale Rin felt the weight and the thrill of a future where humans could rise, where their ingenuity and spirit might shift the balance of the stars themselves. For the first time in his life, Kale understood what it truly meant to meet someone who could change not just the course of his life, but the course of the galaxy. And as he prepared to follow her into the shadowed corridors and beyond, he whispered to himself, "I will not be forgotten, not by her, not by anyone." Kale could not stop thinking about her. Queen Lysera was more than a legend. She was a force of nature, the kind of person who made even the most powerful aliens pause and reconsider. Her presence lingered in his mind like a song he could not forget. Every detail, from the way she moved to the calm confidence in her eyes, haunted him. Humans were rarely part of such stories, but now Kale realized that chance, or fate, had placed him in a rare position. For days, Kale tracked her movements discreetly across Zera 9. He used old contacts, whispered rumors, and careful observation. Humans were small, often overlooked, but that invisibility could be used as a tool. He learned that she rarely stayed in one place. Lysera traveled through the station like a shadow, blending with merchants and travelers, yet her aura was unmistakable. Aliens might not notice her immediately, but humans, sensitive to subtle differences, often did. Kale felt a thrill every time he caught a glimpse of her, knowing he was following someone extraordinary. Finally, intelligence reports from local sources hinted at her next destination, a derelict mining station orbiting a dying star, long abandoned but rich in rare minerals. Kale knew it was dangerous. Mercenaries, scavengers, and pirates often used such stations as bases, but curiosity and duty pushed him forward. If humans were to play any role in the galaxy's future, Kale had to see this through. He approached the station cautiously. His ship, a small but fast human freighter named the Haven, moved silently through the void. The station's hull was scarred from years of neglect, and the outer lights flickered weakly against the blackness of space. Kale's instincts were on high alert. Something about this place felt off, not just because of its decay, but because of the sense that powerful forces had converged here. Docking was tricky. The station's magnetic field was unstable, pulling his freighter slightly off course. Kale navigated expertly, using every ounce of human ingenuity and experience. Aliens often relied on automated systems and sheer numbers, but humans could improvise in ways machines could not. With a final adjustment, the Haven settled into a docking bay with a soft jolt. Kale suited up and entered the station. The air inside was thick with dust and the metallic scent of decay. Lights flickered intermittently, revealing empty corridors, collapsed machinery, and the occasional abandoned mining tool. It was quiet, too quiet. Kale's hand rested on his sidearm, his eyes scanning every shadow. He had been in hostile environments before, but something about this station screamed of a trap. He found her near the central hub of the station. Lysera was calm, standing beside a large observation window that overlooked the dying star. She appeared almost serene, as if the chaos of the universe could not touch her. But Kale noticed the subtle tension in her posture, the way her fingers flexed slightly. She was prepared for something. Before he could speak, the attack began. A group of mercenaries, armed and ruthless, descended from the maintenance shafts. Their plan was clear: capture Lysera, leverage her power, and demand unimaginable wealth or influence. Kale reacted instinctively, his training and human audacity kicking in. He moved swiftly, blocking the first mercenary's path, using a combination of hand-to-hand combat and quick thinking. Humans were small and often underestimated, but Kale had learned to use speed, agility, and clever tactics to survive. He disarmed one attacker by using the environment, a loose pipe, a flashing control panel, and forced another into a corner. The mercenaries were skilled, but they were not prepared for someone who could think like a human in such high-pressure situations. Lysera observed quietly at first, assessing Kale's abilities. She had dealt with trained warriors and elite guards, but his approach was different. It was unpredictable, raw, and effective. Humans often relied on improvisation, using whatever they could find. Kale moved like water, adapting to the attack, never staying in one place for too long. A mercenary lunged at Lysera, and Kale intervened just in time. He grabbed her arm, pulling her to safety as blaster fire ricocheted off the metal walls. Lysera's eyes met his, a mixture of surprise and intrigue in their depths. Most humans would have panicked, but Kale did not hesitate. He acted, and his actions saved her. Once the immediate threat subsided, Lysera spoke, her voice calm yet commanding. "You are reckless." Kale glanced at her, wiping sweat from his brow. "And yet alive, you survived because I acted." She studied him for a moment. "Few humans would act without hesitation in my presence. Most would cower or flee. You are different." Kale nodded, catching his breath. "Humans survive by adapting. We find solutions when others see none. We act when the moment demands it." Lysera's gaze softened slightly, though her aura of power remained. "Perhaps that is why I noticed you," she said. "Not many have the courage to face danger for someone like me, someone few would dare approach." The mercenaries were regrouping, attempting to flank them again. Kale grabbed a control panel and activated the station's emergency lockdown sequence. Heavy doors slammed shut, cutting off corridors and funneling the attackers into narrow paths. It was a risky move, but humans often relied on improvisation and quick thinking, advantages aliens did not anticipate. Lysera followed his lead, moving with fluid grace. Together, they navigated the station, evading attacks and setting traps. Kale realized that her presence was both a challenge and an inspiration. Humans were small in numbers, but when paired with someone of her intelligence and skill, they became formidable. As they reached the docking bay, Lysera finally spoke. "You are remarkable, Kale Rin. Few have acted as you did. You are clever, resourceful, and brave. I have underestimated humans until now." Kale felt a surge of pride. Humans had always been dismissed by the larger galactic powers, underestimated because they lacked numbers and advanced technology. But his actions, combined with her guidance, had turned the tide. "We may be small," he said, "but humans adapt. We survive. We fight when it matters." Lysera nodded, a faint smile on her lips. Perhaps it is time the galaxy remembered that. The final wave of mercenaries approached, but Kale and Lysera were ready. Using a combination of clever traps, environmental hazards, and precise timing, they neutralized the attackers without a single fatality. Kale marveled at how Lysera commanded the battlefield. Her strategy was flawless, but she allowed him moments to act, to make decisions, to demonstrate human ingenuity. It was as if she wanted him to understand the power humans could wield when trusted and empowered. When the dust settled, Lysera turned to him. "You have potential, Kale, rare potential. Humans are often overlooked because they are unpredictable, but unpredictability can be strength. Adaptability can change outcomes that seem impossible." Kale felt a mix of awe and humility. To hear this from one of the most powerful figures in the galaxy was astonishing. He realized that humans were not meant to dominate through sheer force. Their strength lay in creativity, courage, and the ability to act when others hesitated. Lysera extended her hand. "I need someone I can trust, someone who sees the galaxy not as it is, but as it could be. Would you stand by me, Kale Rin?" Kale hesitated. Loyalty was not given lightly, and he knew aligning with her would place him in danger. But the spark of human courage burned brightly. "Yes," he said firmly, "I will stand by you, not because I fear, not because I seek reward, but because the moment demands it. Humans do not step aside when they can make a difference." Lysera's smile widened. "Then we will see what humans are truly capable of. Together we may change more than this station. We may change the galaxy." Kale felt the weight of her words. It was not just a promise or an alliance. It was a challenge, a call to action, and a recognition of what humans could achieve. For too long, humans had been underestimated, dismissed, and ignored. Now, in the presence of someone who could influence star systems and reshape empires, Kale understood the potential that lay within his species. As they prepared to leave the derelict station, Kale piloted the Haven through the unstable docking bays with careful precision. Lysera observed silently, her confidence unwavering, her trust in him evident. They navigated the debris and magnetic turbulence with skill and timing, reaching the safety of open space. Once clear, Lysera finally spoke. "You have shown me that humans can rise to the occasion. Not through numbers, not through sheer power, but through courage, ingenuity, and determination. That is something the galaxy must never forget." Kale nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. Humanity had a role to play, and in that role he could make a difference. Humans were small, yes, but they had something aliens often lacked: creativity, resilience, and the ability to act decisively when it mattered most. Lysera turned to him, her eyes gleaming with both respect and curiosity. "Kale Rin, the galaxy will test you. It will push you to limits you cannot imagine. But I have chosen you because I see the spark within humans, the spark that can change fate itself. Kale felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. The path ahead was dangerous, filled with uncertainty and challenge, but he also understood that he was no longer alone. Humanity, once dismissed and overlooked, now had a champion in Lysera, and he had become a part of that story. As the Haven sped toward the next star system, Kale reflected on what he had learned. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, but because they were adaptable, brave, and willing to stand against impossible odds. And now, standing beside one of the galaxy's most powerful figures, he realized that this survival instinct could become something greater, a force that could shape the future. He knew one thing for certain: this was only the beginning. The galaxy had underestimated humans for too long, but Kale Rin, guided by courage, ingenuity, and the trust of Queen Lysera, would ensure that humans would never be ignored again. The galaxy was larger and more dangerous than Kale had ever imagined. He had traveled to distant star systems, navigated treacherous nebulae, and faced hostile aliens, but nothing prepared him for what lay ahead. Queen Lysera had warned him. The galaxy's powers were not idle, and many would see humans as weak, naive, or irrelevant. Yet Kale felt the spark of determination growing inside him. Humans had survived against overwhelming odds before, and they would do it again. Lysera's warning had been clear. A faction within the Galactic Council sought to overthrow her. This faction, composed of powerful alien leaders and rogue mercenaries, saw her influence as a threat to their control. They underestimated humans entirely. Kale knew their arrogance would be their downfall. They arrived at the strategic outpost of Corvex Station, a hub for political intrigue and covert operations. The station hovered above a blue gas giant, its atmosphere swirling with storms visible even from orbit. Lysera's fleet moved silently, cloaked to avoid detection. Kale piloted the Haven, maneuvering carefully alongside the Orcsian vessels. The human freighter was small, but it had a nimbleness the larger ships lacked. Lysera briefed him in the command room. Holographic projections displayed star systems, fleets, and corridors of influence. "They believe they control everything," she said, her voice calm yet sharp. "They underestimate the value of unpredictability, of human creativity. That is why I brought you here." Kale studied the map, his mind racing. Humans might be small in numbers, but they had always survived by adapting. He began to see the outlines of a strategy that combined Lysera's intelligence with human improvisation. "We can use their arrogance against them," he said. "They expect us to fight on their terms, we'll fight on ours." Lysera's eyes sparkled with approval. "Exactly. Humans have always relied on ingenuity and courage. It is rare among galactic powers, but it is powerful." For days, Kale and Lysera worked together, planning carefully. They studied the enemy's patterns, noting weaknesses in their fleets and command structures. Humans were unpredictable, and Kale knew that unpredictability could become their greatest advantage. They created diversions, misleading communications, and traps designed to exploit the faction's overconfidence. Every move was calculated, yet flexible, allowing for improvisation in case the unexpected occurred. The day of confrontation arrived. The enemy fleet approached Corvex Station, confident and unafraid. They expected to find a small, isolated human and a queen they believed would be vulnerable without her full forces. They underestimated both. Kale piloted the Haven, weaving through asteroid fields and debris with uncanny precision. His human instincts allowed him to maneuver in ways automated systems could not, evading enemy scanners and avoiding ambushes. Lysera's fleet engaged the enemy, their formations precise and deadly, yet she allowed Kale opportunities to act independently. The first wave of enemy ships moved to cut off Lysera's forces. Kale saw a chance. Using the debris fields as cover, he led a small team of human pilots on a daring strike against the enemy's supply ships. It was a bold move, risky and seemingly impossible, but humans thrived on daring. The attack succeeded, crippling the enemy's logistics and throwing their fleet into confusion. Lysera's voice came through the comms, calm and commanding. "Well done, Kale. Your actions have given us the advantage." Kale felt a surge of pride. Humans were often overlooked because of their size, but their creativity and courage had turned the tide. The enemy fleet, now disorganized, was vulnerable to Lysera's strategic maneuvers. She struck with precision, capturing key vessels and forcing retreats. Yet the battle was far from over. A rogue commander, the mastermind behind the faction, attempted a surprise attack on Lysera herself. Kale sensed the danger before anyone else, instincts honed from countless missions. He acted without hesitation, intercepting the attacker's ship and drawing it away. Using the Haven's agility and unconventional tactics, Kale outmaneuvered the enemy, forcing a surrender. Lysera's eyes met his, a mixture of respect and admiration. "You think like a human," she said. "Your unpredictability is a weapon I have seldom seen used so effectively." Kale smiled faintly. "Humans survive by thinking differently. We act when others hesitate. We find ways when others see none." The rogue commander, now captured, was stunned by the human's audacity. He had expected fear, hesitation, or failure. Instead, he found clever tactics, courage, and a calm resolve that he could not comprehend. Humans, small and underestimated, had become a decisive factor in a battle that could have toppled a queen. After the battle, Kale and Lysera stood on the bridge of her flagship, overlooking the battlefield. The enemy fleet had retreated, their arrogance shattered. Lysera turned to him. "The galaxy has underestimated humans for too long. Your courage, your ingenuity, it is rare, and yet it is powerful." Kale felt the weight of her words. Humanity had survived countless threats, often dismissed and ignored, yet here they were, changing the course of galactic events. He understood now that strength was not measured by numbers or firepower alone. Humans possessed qualities that others could not anticipate: adaptability, creativity, and the will to act decisively. Lysera placed a hand on his shoulder, a rare gesture of trust. "Kale Rin, you have proven that humans can rise to the occasion. You have reminded me why unpredictability is sometimes the greatest strength. Together, we have changed the course of events today." Kale nodded. "We only did what humans do best. We survive, we fight, and when it matters, we act." News of their victory spread quickly. Humans across the galaxy, often dismissed and ignored, felt a renewed sense of pride. They were small, yes, but capable of great feats. The legend of Kale Rin and Queen Lysera grew, a story of courage, ingenuity, and the strength of a species often underestimated. But Kale knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and threats were many. Yet he also knew that humans had a role to play, not as pawns, but as active agents capable of shaping the future. And beside Lysera, humans had a champion who understood their worth and their potential. In the quiet moments after battle, Kale reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He had started as a lone human in a galaxy that often ignored his kind. He had met a queen who commanded fleets, armies, and entire star systems, yet he had acted with courage, wit, and determination. He had proven that even in the shadow of overwhelming power, humans could make a difference. Lysera joined him at the observation deck, her eyes reflecting the stars. "The galaxy is not kind," she said softly. "It tests everyone, but humans have a spark that can shape destiny." Kale looked at her, understanding the depth of her words. Humanity was small, yes, but it was clever, adaptable, and courageous. They survived because they dared to act, even when the odds were impossible. And now, standing beside a queen, Kale knew that humans could rise, not just to survive, but to influence the very course of galactic history. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a vast canvas of possibility. Kale felt a surge of determination. Humans had survived for millennia, often underestimated, often ignored, but never defeated. And now, with Lysera's trust and guidance, they had the chance to rise in ways the galaxy could not have imagined. Lysera turned to him, her expression both serious and kind. "Kale Rin, we have faced one threat, but many remain. Will you continue to stand with me?" Kale's answer was immediate, firm, and unwavering. "Yes, because humans act when it matters, because we survive, and because I will not let the galaxy forget what we can do." She smiled faintly, a rare and genuine smile. "Then let us move forward. Together we will show the galaxy the strength of humanity, not just in numbers, but in courage, in intelligence, and in will." Kale felt the truth of her words resonate deep within him. Humans had always been underestimated, but that would no longer matter. They had the spark, the creativity, and the courage to rise. And now, standing beside Lysera, Kale understood that the future of humanity was no longer a matter of survival alone. It was a matter of influence, of shaping the galaxy itself. As they prepared for the next challenge, Kale reflected on the journey so far. From a crowded station on Zera 9 to the derelict mining outpost, and finally to the battlefield of Korvek's station, every moment had tested him, every decision had mattered. And through it all, one truth had become clear. Humans, though small in number, could achieve greatness when their courage and ingenuity were put to the test. Lysera's hand rested briefly on his shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they had formed. It was not just a partnership of convenience, it was recognition of what humans could offer to a galaxy that had long dismissed them. Kale felt a surge of pride, not in himself alone, but in humanity. The galaxy waited, full of challenges, dangers, and mysteries. But Kale Rin, standing beside Queen Lysera, knew one thing with certainty: humans would rise. They would act when others hesitated, adapt when others faltered, and survive when others failed. And perhaps, just perhaps, they would leave a mark that the stars themselves could not ignore. For Kale, the adventure was far from over. But with courage, ingenuity, and the trust of one of the most powerful figures in the galaxy, he knew that humanity's story had only just begun. The galaxy would remember their kind, not as pawns, not as the overlooked, but as a force capable of shaping destiny itself. And as the Haven and Lysera's fleet jumped into hyperspace toward the next star system, Kale allowed himself a rare moment of quiet reflection. Humanity had survived against impossible odds. Now they would thrive. And with Lysera by his side, Kale knew that nothing could stand in their way. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and Kale Rin, human among the vast cosmos, smiled. The galaxy had underestimated them for too long. Now it would learn what humans could truly achieve.